Welcome back to this next video, and in this video we are going to talk about the nucleic acids, that is the deoxyribonucleic acid, the DNA, and the ribonucleic acid, that is the RNA. So the first thing is, what are nucleic acids? The nucleic acids, also known as the polynucleotides, they are the biopolymers or large biomolecules which are essential to all known forms of life. Now this term nucleic acid, that is the overall name for the DNA and the RNA. So the nucleic acid is covering both the DNA and the RNA. These nucleic acids, they are composed of nucleotides, and these nucleotides, they are actually made up of three components. The first component is a 5-carbon sugar, then you have got a phosphate group, and you have got a nitrogenous base. We will discuss that in detail in a while. Now this 5-carbon sugar in the nucleic acid, it can exist in two forms. If this sugar is a compound ribose, this sugar is actually a ribose. So if the sugar that is used in the nucleotides or the polynucleotide, if that is a ribose, the polymer is known as the ribonucleic acid. And if the sugar is derived from the ribose as deoxyribose, the polymer is known as the deoxyribonucleic acid. So this ribo term in the ribonucleic acid is actually indicating that the sugar that is present, that is a ribose sugar, and this deoxyribo term in the DNA is actually referring that the sugar that is present, that is the deoxyribose. Now, why they are called as the nucleic acids? The nucleic acids, they were named for their initial discovery within the nucleus, from where this term nucleic has been derived, and for the presence of the phosphate group related to the phosphoric acid, which is this phosphate group is from the phosphoric acid. Therefore, this term acid is here. So they are called nucleic acid because they were discovered in the nucleus and they have got an acidic component. If you talk about the molecular composition and size of the polynucleotides, so the size of the DNA, that is very variable. It can be very small, like 21 nucleotides in the small interfering RNAs. These are the special RNA responsible for gene regulation, and the size can be very large. For example, if you talk about the human chromosome number 1, it contains a single DNA molecule which contains 247 million base pair. So compare the 21 nucleotides with the 247 million base pair. There is a huge difference in size between the this 21 and this 247 million base pair. So the size of the DNA, that can be very variable. Now in most of the cases, not all of the cases, in most of the cases, the naturally occurring DNA molecules, they are double-stranded, and the RNA molecules, they are single-stranded. So this is the case in most of the cases. However, there are certain exceptions. For example, if you talk about the rotaviruses, which are responsible for causing gastroenteritis in the human beings, their genome is made up of a double-stranded RNA as compared to the single-stranded RNA. And if you talk about the bacteriophages, and a special family of the bacteriophages known as the microviridae, their genome is made up from the single-stranded DNA. First, we will focus on the deoxyribonucleic acid, or the DNA. So the DNA, that is the hereditary material in humans and almost all other organisms. So in most of the organisms, the hereditary material is the DNA, including the humans. In the humans, if you talk about the DNA, nearly every cells in a person's body, they have got the same DNA. So whichever cell you take, that is going to have the same DNA. If this is cell from a liver, if this is cell from a brain, if this is cell from the lungs, all of these cells are going to have the same DNA. Of course, their transcription that is different, but this is not the scope of this particular video. Now, most of the DNA in the human beings, that is located in the cell nucleus, where it is called as the nuclear DNA. But a small amount of DNA that can also be present in a particular organelle known as the mitochondria, and the DNA which is present in the mitochondria is called as the mitochondrial DNA, but for short that is known as the mtDNA. If this is a cell, this is the nucleus of the cell, the DNA that is present within this nucleus is called as the nuclear DNA. And these green dots over here, they are actually representing the organelle, the mitochondria. So the mitochondria, that is an organelle within the cell, and the DNA that is present within this organelle is called as the mitochondrial DNA. So the mitochondria, that is a very important organelle in the cell, as that is the powerhouse of the cell, and it converts the energy from food into a form that the cell can use. So it is going to convert the energy from the food into the ATP form, and the cell then is using this ATP as a source of energy for the cell. Let us first focus on the structure of the DNA. As I've told you that the nucleic acids, including the DNA, that is made up of the three components. So the first component, that is the nucleobase. Now in literature there are different terms which are used for these nucleobases. The term nucleobase is also used, the nitrogenous base or the simply base term that is also used. So these three things, the nucleobase, the nitrogenous base or bases, they are referring to one and the same thing. These nucleobases, they are nitrogen containing compounds, and they are divided into two classes. One is known as the purines, and this purine is a double ring structure, and it contains 4 nitrogen. As you can see over here, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is 4. So the purine, they are a double ring structure, and they contain 4 nitrogen atom. One of the ring, this 6-member ring, is known as the pyrimidine ring, and the small ring is known as the imidazole ring. And the other type of the other class of the nucleobases, they are known as the pyrimidines, and these pyrimidines are a single ring structure, and they contain only 2 nitrogen atoms. As you can see over here, this is 1 and this is 2. So the first component of the DNA of the nucleotides, you can say, that is a nucleobase, which can be a purine and or which can be the pyrimidine. Now, what are the purines, specific examples of the purines? Now, the purines, they make up 2 of the 4 nucleobases in DNA and RNA. In the DNA, you have got 4 nucleobases. In the RNA, of course, you have got 4 nucleobases. But out of these 4 nucleobases, the purine, they make 2 of the nucleobases. And these bases are known as the adenine and the guanine. And this image is actually showing you the adenine structure with standard numbering of the position. So this is if you are going to number these rings, or if you are going to number the adenine, this is the position number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And this is the numbered structure for the guanine. Like from here, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And these numbers, they are very important when we talk about the interaction between the purines and the pyrimidines in a while. So the purines, they are making the 2 of the 4 nucleobases which are present in the nucleic acids, and they are the adenine and the guanine. The pyrimidines, they are making the other bases or the other nucleobases, and they are known as they are the cytosine, thymine, and uracil. So there are 3 nucleobases in the pyrimidines, known as the cytosine, which is present in both the DNA and the RNA, the thymine, which is only present in the DNA, and the uracil, which is only present in the RNA. And these are the numbered structures of the cytosine, the thymine, and the uracil. So you have got a total of 4 nucleobases in the DNA and the RNA. So in the DNA, you are going to have adenine, guanine as the purines, and the cytosine and thymine as the pyrimidines. If you talk about the RNA, in the RNA, you are going to have the adenine and guanine as the purines, but you are going to have the cytosine and uracil as the pyrimidines. The next component of the nucleotide, that is the sugar component. Now, as I've told you that the sugar component that is present in the nucleic acid, they are actually the ribose or its derivatives. So a ribose is a simple sugar. By simple sugar means that it cannot be hydrolyzed further. So ribose is a simple sugar, and the naturally occurring form, that is the D-ribose, that is the component of the RNA. These you can see sugars can exist in different forms, in the D form and in the L form. So when you talk about the sugar in the nucleic acid, that is actually the D-ribose that is used as a component of the RNA. And this is the structure of the D-ribose over here. And as you can see over here, you have got 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 carbons in the ribose sugar. Therefore we call this as a pentose sugar or a 5 carbon sugar. So in the RNA you are going to have this D-ribose as a component, and this ribose, this is very important for the coding, regulation and expression of the gene, as it is making the structure of the nucleotide. Now this D-ribose, it have got a structural analog which is known as the deoxyribose, which is a similarly essential component of the DNA. So the ribose is present in the RNA, the deoxyribose is present in the DNA. So what is the difference between the ribose and the deoxyribose then? If you look at the structures over here, at position number 2 in the ribose, you have got this hydroxyl group. But when you convert this into the deoxyribose, deoxy means that one of the oxygen that have been removed. So if you look at the deoxyribose at position number 2, you are only having a hydrogen group, you are not having any oxygen group. Therefore we call them as the deoxyribose, that this is a ribose from which an oxygen that has been removed. So this deoxyribose, that is the sugar component of the DNA. This ribose is the sugar component of the RNA. One important thing to keep in mind is that a nucleoside that consists of a nucleobase and a 5 carbon sugar. Actually we are using two terms. One is known as the nucleotide and the other one that is known as a nucleobase. So these are two you can say vocabulary terms, so you should differentiate between these two. A nucleobase is actually the sugar attached to the nucleobases, as we discussed in the previous slides. So a 5 carbon sugar attached to a nucleobase, that is known as a nucleoside. But when a phosphate group that is attached to a nucleoside, then that is known as a nucleotide. So this is a difference between the nucleoside. Nucleoside is actually the sugar plus the base, and the nucleotide is the sugar base plus the phosphate group. These are the names, and these are the some of the terminologies that you should keep in your mind. Like if you talk about the nitrogenous base or the nucleobase, or simply the base. So if the base is, if you are using the term adenine, that is only referring to the base. If you are using the term adenosine, that means that you are talking about a ribonucleoside. So the adenine is only the base. The adenosine is actually the base attached to the sugar. This is actually a ribonucleoside. So if you are using the term adenosine, that means that you are using a ribose sugar where there is a hydroxyl group at the position number 2. So adenine is only the base. Adenosine is actually a ribonucleoside. Ribonucleoside means adenine attached to a ribose sugar. And if you talk about deoxyribonucleoside, again, this is the adenine base which is attached to a deoxyribose, where at position number 2 the hydroxyl group that is not present. So in the RNA you will be having this ribonucleoside. In the DNA you are going to have the deoxyadenosine over here. So this is adenine is the base, adenosine is the ribonucleoside, and the deoxyadenosine is the deoxyribonucleoside. So this is true for all of the other bases as well. If you are using the term guanine, it is only the nitrogenous base. If you talk about its a ribonucleoside, that is known as the guanosine, in which the guanine nucleotide is attached to a ribose sugar. And if you talk about the deoxyguanosine, you have attached the guanine to the deoxyribose sugar. Same goes for the thymine. If you are only using the term nitrogenous base, it is the thymine. though this is referring to the nitrogenous base only. If you talk about the ribonucleoside of the thymine, that is actually known as the 5-methyl uridine, and here the a thymine group that is attached to a ribose sugar. And if you talk about the thymidine, you are attaching the thymine to the deoxyribose sugar. If you talk about the uracil is the nitrogenous base, uridine is the ribonucleoside, and the deoxyuridine is the deoxyribonucleoside. If you talk about the cytosine, I hope you have got the idea what the ribonucleoside and the deoxyribonucleoside means. So the nitrogenous base, the cytosine, its ribonucleoside is known as the cytidine, and its deoxyribonucleoside is known as the cytidine. So these deoxyribonucleosides, they are used in the DNA. The ribonucleosides, they are used in the RNA. So this is the first component, the nitrogenous base. This is the second component, that is the sugar. And the third component of a nucleotide, that is known as a phosphate group. So this one is making actually the third component of the nucleotide. So as I've told you, if you are attaching a nitrogenous base to sugar, so this component will be known as the nucleoside. But if you are attaching a phosphate group, so this whole structure will then be the structure of the nucleotide, not nucleoside. This is nucleotide. If you talk about the DNA, one of the purine that interacts with the other pyrimidine when you are making the double-stranded structure of the DNA. So you should know that which of the positions of the adenine they are interacting with the thymine, and which of the positions of the guanine they are interacting with the cytosine. Because if you talk about the complementarity basing in the DNA, the adenine is making 2 hydrogen bonds with the thymine, and the guanine is making 3 hydrogen bond with the cytosine. So what are the exact positions in these adenine and thymine, and the cytosine and the guanine? If you talk about the adenine and the thymine, you can see over here you are making 2 hydrogen bonds. So in the adenine, position number 1, the nitrogen, the NH2 of the adenine, this particular position number 1 is actually interacting with the position number 3 of the thymine, and the position number 6 of the adenine, that is actually interacting with the position number 4 of the thymine. So this is 1 hydrogen bond that is made between the position number 6 of adenine and position number 4 of the thymine, and this is another hydrogen bond which is made between the position number 1 of the adenine and the position number 3 of the thymine. So you are actually having 2 hydrogen bonds between the adenine and the thymine, and I have mentioned the exact positions over here. You can see that. If you talk about the guanine and the cytosine, they are actually making 3 hydrogen bonds with each other. So if you talk about the specific position, the group number 6 of the guanine, that is interacting with the position number 4 of the you can say the cytosine, as you can see over here with the exact position number 4. Not position exactly over here. If you can see over here, this is the structure of the guanine, this is the structure of the cytosine. So the position number 6 of the guanine over here, that is going to interact with the position number 4 of the cytosine. The position number 1 of the guanine, that is going to interact with the position number 3 of the cytosine, and the position number 2 in the guanine, that is going to interact with position number 2 of the cytosine, thereby by making 3 hydrogen bonds. So there are 2 hydrogen bonds between adenine and thymine, and there are 3 hydrogen bonds between the guanine and the cytosine. So this is the structure of the guanine, and this is the structure of the cytosine with their specific position mentioned for the hydrogen bonding. Now the question is, why adenine and thymine have double bond while cytosine and guanine have triple bond? Because in both of these cases, this is the purine and this is the pyrimidine, this is the purine and this is the pyrimidine. So why one pyrimidine and purine ring purine interaction is making 2 hydrogen bond, and another pyrimidine and purine interaction is making 3 hydrogen bonds. Now hydrogen bond, they form between a hydrogen bond donor and hydrogen bond acceptor. So when you talk about the cytosine and guanine, there are actually 3 pairs of hydrogen bond donor and acceptor. And if you have got 3 pairs of the hydrogen bond donor and the acceptor, that means that the guanine and cytosine are utilizing these 3 pairs of the hydrogen bond donor acceptor to make 3 hydrogen bonds. When you talk about the thymine and the adenine, there are only 2 hydrogen bond donors and 2 hydrogen bond acceptors. So when there are 2 hydrogen bond donor and 2 hydrogen bond acceptor, that means that in the end you are only going to have 2 hydrogen bonds. So because of the 3 pairs of the hydrogen bond donor acceptor in the cytosine and the guanine pair, they are going to make 3 hydrogen bonds, and because of the presence of 2 hydrogen bond donor and acceptor in the thymine and the adenine pair, you are going to have 2 hydrogen bonds between them. One of the important thing to keep in mind is the phosphodiester bond, because these are the bonds that make the 2 nucleotides in connection with each other in a single strand of the DNA. This is very important to keep in mind, that the phosphodiester bond that are present in a single strand of DNA and the 2 strands of the DNA, they are not connected to each other by the phosphodiester bond. They are actually connected to each other by the hydrogen bond between the adenine and the thymine and the cytosine and the guanine. So what is a phosphodiester bond? A phosphodiester bond that is made when exactly 2 hydroxyl groups in the phosphoric acid, they react with hydroxyl groups on other molecules to form 2 ester bonds. Now how this is going to work? This is one nucleotide, this is another nucleotide, and you are actually going to connect them with connect these 2 with each other with the help of the phosphodiester bond. If you talk about this phosphate group over here from the phosphoric acid, it have got a hydroxyl group over here, and it have also got hydroxyl group over here, and this hydroxyl group is actually going to interact with this particular hydroxyl group which is present in the sugar of these nucleotides. On the other hand, this sugar, it is containing a hydroxyl group at the position number 5, and this hydroxyl group is actually interacting with this particular oxygen to make an ester bond. So as you are making 2 ester bonds, one bond over here and one bond over here, therefore this is known as the diester bond, because you are making 2 ester bonds, therefore that is known as the diester bond. We call it as the phosphodiester bond, because these ester bonds, they are made by the phosphoric acid, so they are known as the phosphodiester bond. The 2 nucleotides, when they are connected to each other by the phosphodiester bond, this is actually a condensation reaction. And condensation reaction simply refers to those reactions in which the water molecules that is released. So when this nucleotide, it interacts with this nucleotide by the formation of the phosphodiester bond, it is a liberating water molecule, therefore this reaction is known as a condensation reaction. If you can see over here, this hydroxyl group is interacting with the 3rd sugar of this 3rd carbon of this sugar, and this one is interacting with the 5th sugar of this carbon. So one of the sugar of one nucleotide, that is actually connected to the sugar of the other nucleotide with the help of this phosphodiester bond. One thing to keep in mind is that if you talk about the ribose sugar, if you talk about the nucleotide, the nitrogenous bases, both of them, they have got carbon atoms. So how to differentiate between the carbon atoms of the sugar and that of the nucleobases? We do that by putting a prime on the carbons of the sugar. So if this is a 1 prime, this means you are talking about the carbon number 1 of the sugar. But if this is only 1 without a prime, that means you are talking about the carbon of the nitrogenous bases, and you are not talking about the carbons of the sugar. So this prime is actually indicating that this is the carbon of the sugar. So this is 1 prime, this is 2 prime, this is 3 prime, this is 4 prime, and this is 5 prime, indicating the 5 carbons that are present in the sugar of the nucleic acids. Now at this particular position, the carbon number 1 position, this is the position where the nitrogenous bases, they are going to bind to the sugar molecules, and at the position number 5, the phosphate group, they are attached. And at this particular third position, the phosphate from the other nucleotide, that is going to interact over here. So this sugar is actually making 3 interaction. At the position number 1, the bases, they are attached. At the position number 5, the phosphate group is attached, and it uses its position number 3 to interact with the other nucleotides to make a polynucleotide or a single strand of the DNA. This is a very little polynucleotide, how the nucleotides, they are attached to each other. So if this is one nucleotide, you have got a base, you have got a sugar, and you have got a phosphate molecule. So this is a one nucleotide. So this one nucleotide, it's actually attached to this other nucleotide. This is the phosphate group of other nucleotide. This is the sugar, and this is the base. So this one is another nucleotide, and this one is another nucleotide. So all of these nucleotides, they are attached to each other by these phosphodiester bond. And the term that we use is that is the sugar phosphate backbone. So this is actually the phosphate, this is the sugar, the phosphate, the sugar, the phosphate, and the sugar. Therefore we say that this is the sugar phosphate backbone, and these are actually the bases which are present to the interior of the structure. So the outside of the structure is actually a sugar phosphate links. And this is the polynucleotide, which is only made up of the 3 nucleotides, and it is extending in this particular pattern. If you talk about the DNA, as I've told you, in most of the cases they are a double-stranded structure. So as you can see over here, this is the phosphate group, this one is the sugar, and this is the base. As this base is the adenine, so it is going to interact with the thymine, which is present on the other strand of the DNA. So this is the sugar, this is the base, and this is the phosphate group. So the adenine and the thymine, they are going to make 2 hydrogen bond with each other. If you talk about this one, this and one, this even is the guanine. This is one nucleotide, this is guanine, this is its sugar molecule, and this is the phosphate group. Again, this is the cytosine, its sugar and the phosphate group, and the guanine and the cytosine, they are going to make 3 hydrogen bonds. Now this is actually making a double-stranded structure. As you can see over here, the single-stranded structure is actually made by the linkage of the 2 nucleotides to each other by the phosphodiester bond. So you are actually you are having the phosphodiester bond at this particular point. You are having the phosphodiester bond over here, and the interior of these 2 strands, they are connected to each other by the interaction between the adenine and the thymine, and the interaction between the guanine and the cytosine, that is the nucleobases, they are interacting with each other. Now these 2 strands of the DNA, they are anti-parallel in nature. By that I mean that one of the strand runs in the 5' to 3' end, and the other runs in the 3' end to the 5' end. Now if you can see over here, the position where the phosphate group that is not attached to anything, that is known as the 5' end, and the position where the hydroxyl group of the sugar, that is free and not attached to anything, that is actually known as the 3' end. So as you can see over here, the 5' the end, that is free. So this is the 5' end, and this is the 3' end. If you can see over here, at this particular strand, instead of the phosphate group, hydroxyl group, and that is free, therefore we call this as the 3' end, and here a phosphate group that is free, therefore we call this as the 5' end. So the 2 strands of the DNA, they runs in anti-parallel direction, one in 5' to 3' direction, the other in the 3' to the 5' direction. Now Why this is important, that the adenine and the thymine, they make 2 hydrogen bonds, and the guanine and the cytosine, they make 3 hydrogen bonds, because the interaction between the guanine and the cytosine is they are making 3 hydrogen bonds. So that is very much stronger as compared to the adenine and the thymine, which is having 2 hydrogen bonds. So there is a difference in strength between the two sets of the Watson and Crick bases. Now why this is important? As the DNA, that is the hereditary material, and this is also the material from which the functional RNA, that is the messenger RNA, the transfer RNA, and the ribosomal RNA, they are formed. So we need protection, we need a strong hereditary molecule which can protect the hereditary material, and at the same time it allow the DNA replication and the transcription machinery to transcribe and replicate the DNA molecule. So the adenine and the thymine, as they make 2 hydrogen bonds, so they are weaker as compared to the guanine and the cytosine. So this weak interaction is actually allowing the DNA replication and transcription machinery to replicate and transcribe the DNA molecule. And the guanine and the cytosine, as they make 3 hydrogen bonds, therefore they provide stability to the hereditary material of the cell, that is the DNA. One important thing to keep in mind, especially when you talk about the transcription, that is the sense and the antisense strand. So a DNA sequence that is called as the sense strand, if its sequence is same as that of the messenger RNA that is translated into the protein. So as we are talking about the double-stranded DNA, so that particular strand of the DNA whose sequence is similar to that of the messenger RNA is known as the sense strand, and the other strand that is known as the anti-strand RNA. This is a very short example of that. If this is the sense strand of the DNA, this is the antisense strand of the DNA. So what the RNA polymerase is doing, that when it is transcribing, it is going for the transcription of the antisense strand of the DNA, and when it transcribes this antisense strand of the DNA, the sequence of the messenger RNA, that is very much similar to the sense strand of the DNA. As you can see over here, this is adenine, this is adenine. This is thymine, so this is uracil, because you know that in the DNA there is thymine and the RNA there is uracil. Again, this is G, this is G, this is GCC, this is GCC. So the sequence of the messenger RNA that is similar to this sense strand, so that particular strand of the DNA whose sequence is similar to the messenger RNA is known as the sense strand, and the other strand which is transcribed by the RNA polymerase, that is known as the antisense strand, and this messenger RNA is further translated into the peptide for making the proteins. If you talk about the human beings, this is a little bit information about the human genome, that the human DNA consists of about 3 billion base pairs in a haploid state. If you talk about the diploid state, there are about 6 billion base pairs. And the interesting thing is that more than 99% of these bases, they are same in all people around the globe. Now the order or sequence of these bases, they determine the information available for building and maintaining an organisms, similar to the way in which the letters of the alphabet, they appear in a certain order to form words and the sentences. If you talk about the genes, we will discuss that in detail in the next video, but as per the Human Genome Projects, there are about 20,000 to 25,000 genes that are present in the human genome. So we will continue the discussion in the next video.